Okay, in this continuation of a verse-by-verse through the Epistle of James, I got my Belgium hat on, where my son and his family minister to mostly military people in Belgium, and I got my liberalism find a cure. Yes, because I do believe it's a mental disorder. But in James 4 is new territory, and I've been getting new updated information about my understanding of the scriptures that I haven't really seen before. And, I used to think, okay, these wars and fightings, kind of a universal thing, and then adulterers and adulteresses, but, all this stuff. I do believe there's pretty amazing idea that we're going to come across here in the first 6 verses. So remember that James is addressed to the 12 tribes. They're scattered throughout the world, and they will be living during a time period called the last days. And this ye and this your is an interesting idea, especially when we get down to verse 4, where he says, ye adulterers and adulteresses. It's kind of unusual idea. But here at the beginning, he says, from whence come wars and fightings among you? Okay, so war. Now, wars and fightings, of course, the United Nations think that that's the greatest scourge of mankind. And they think the solution to war is force equality upon all the races and all the nations, and redistribute wealth, which actually causes greed, lust, and more wars. But Paul says something uniquely different, and so James is going to bring up the same idea. From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence even of your lusts that war in your members? Ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have, and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not, because ye ask not. Ye ask and receive not, because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lust. And I kind of thought, wow, what's wars and fightings dealing with in the Epistle of James? Well, if the approach to James is dealing with the last days, I guess we should go to a passage that is also dealing with the same time period doctrinally. And this is Jesus speaking, commonly known as the Olivet Discourse. And so he says, then shall be great tribulation. And then he brings up Daniel and Judea and all this stuff. And so this is known as the end of Daniel's 70th week. And this is the answer, a very extended answer to these 3 questions. And so the first answer is deception. Of course, we live in an amazing time of deception. But here he says, ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So the end is what James 4 is actually dealing with. So this kind of puts us on the right footing. Now here he's telling us the reason why we have wars and fightings, outwardly, is because you and I have a war inside of us. The war inside of us, between our flesh and our spirit, could cause the wars and fightings outwardly. Okay, so Paul mentioned that in Romans chapter 7, and so this is kind of a universal idea. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. So just as Paul said that the wars and fightings outside of us are a result of the wars and fightings inside of us, between our spirit and our flesh. Okay, so dealing with the inward wars. Now, war is a racket, international wars or whatnot. Now, the beloved United Nations, the UN, usual nonsense, supposedly began to end all wars. And so here's their approach. They've got 17 goals, no poverty, zero hunger. And you read down through this garbage, gender equality, yes, oh, aren't we impressed? And then you get down to number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. So, of course, the United Nations is actually a front for a one world government, and they're going to do it through the Green Movement. Let's see how they've done on war since their inception. So we have a list of wars since 1949 to 1989. Whoa. Boy, ain't the United Nations doing a bang-up job? Look at all them. Man, that's crazy. So let's try, go back and see if we got, from 1990 to 2002, of course, the United Nations, they've really helped us out here. War. Yes, war. And, of course, the Gulf War that George I got us into, and he said the fifth objective is to bring in a new world order. So, obviously, we can see that the usual nonsense. Okay, so let's see, 2003, yes, they've done a bang-up job. Look at all these wars, and all this stuff. Just amazing. Oh, they're doing such a fine job as far as, taking care of the wars. And so then James said there, ye ask and receive not because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lust. A consumer. That's where we get the word consumer. Archaic word, out of date. Can't figure that out. Boy, it's tough. The Bible's tough. You can't figure it out. Okay, well, let's see what the new Bibles do with the idea of consume, where the beloved King James, ye may consume. Okay, what do they got? Spend, squander, spend, want, spend. All of them, New King Jimmy, no consume, no consumers in all these Bibles that have copyright so that the consumer buys them. Just kind of amazing, as far as that works out. And this kind of brings us to another idea in here because, as I mentioned, this is addressed to a plurality of people, the 12 tribes. How many Jews are in the world now? I don't know. I think 6 million in America, 6 million in Israel. So you're dealing with millions of people. And they're not all righteous. They're not all unrighteous. They're not Jewish Christians. Now, he calls them my brethren. And a person says, well, then they're Christians. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The word ye, and he calls them ye, adulterers and adulteresses, ye, all this ye, your. The King James Bible is like a legal document from God. And since attorneys, make a living off of words, and nobody in the street uses legalese, the words that we may use in court, but the common words on the street are different than the words in the court. And so the word ye is a plural pronoun. Ye, plural pronoun. Your, plural. The ye, you, and your are found 66 times in this letter. And who will be the ye, you, and your is these 12 tribes. That's who he's talking to. Now, the King James Bible is so precise. The TH's words, thou, thy, thine, thy. Thee is found 1 time in James, and thou is 9 times. And you can see how he uses it where it's singular pronoun. And the folks against the King James Bible, the these and the thous are archaic, and they're so hard to understand. We need to update it because thee and thou, nobody knows those four-letter words. Okay, yea, a man may say. So we're dealing with a singular individual. Thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith and thy works, singular pronoun, and I will show thee my faith by my works. Thou, singular pronoun, believest there is one God. Thou doest well, the devils also believe and tremble. But wilt thou know, O vain man, singular pronoun, that faith without works is dead? Who are the ye, adulterers and adulteresses, that's dealing with war? Well, let me see. Dwight Eisenhower, President Dwight Eisenhower, on his farewell address, warned Americans against the establishment of a military-industrial complex. In this less than 10-minute speech, he warned Americans about the military-industrial complex and how it will jeopardize peace. Now, this Brigadier General, Smedley Butler, wrote this book where he says, war is a racket where the bankers finance both sides and the military-industrial complex, and that wasn't in play yet, I guess. It was in principle, not in name. And so he warned about that. And then this wonderful book by this man, Lawrence Vance, Christianity and War. He used to teach Greek and Hebrew and other subjects in a Bible institute in Florida until the leadership foolishly parted company with him because of his constitutional beliefs on liberty, and the loss was theirs when they did that. But sadly, that's what happens going on across the churches of today. So, ye adulterers and adulteresses, okay? And so if we go with all the ye's that we find in James, look at this. 66 of these, ye, you, your, here's ye, and ye lust, ye kill, ye fight, ye ask not, ye ask and receive not, ye ask amiss, and then ye adulterers and adulteresses. Know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? So these people, now it's kind of, doesn't that seem kind of out of place where you're dealing with warmongers and whoremongers at the same time? Well, maybe we could figure this strange association we have here. And if these would be the evil aspect of the 12 tribes, they've maybe a part of the military-industrial complex making money off of war and killing. And at that time, they become an enemy of God. Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is an enemy of God. Now, that's kind of a universal statement, but in this context, warmongers associated with whoremongers. How does that take place? It's a strange association with lust. And this lust is going to come down and be used in a good fashion. So how does this work? Well, here's how it works, my friend. It's called sextortion. Like you have extortion, and you just put the S in front of it. This is how politicians are blackmailed to vote for certain things, where they invite them to party and get them a drinking or a snorting, and then bring in some children and or females, or maybe males, depending on their sexual preference. But when a guy gets drunk and high, anything goes, my friend, and they tape them, record them, and then we'll bring these things up. And if this party seems to be voting the wrong way, they will just say, well, we'll just have to start publishing some of these things. And so this website, this is ICE. I mean, here's the red flags and all this stuff. The reason why this is how politics works. The common phrase, I don't know if you remember hearing it, is in the know. Have you ever heard that before? The common phrase, in the know? Where did in the know begin? Well, we go back to Genesis 19, where we have Mr. Lot, who was a city official in Sodom. He was a judge of some type. Can you imagine getting elected or appointed to that position as a righteous man or a just man? Well, a couple angels show up here, and they're going to warn Lot and say, hey, it's going to get the temperature. We're going to have global warming here in Sodom very shortly, and you need to get out of Dodge. And some multiple alphabet communities showed up outside of his door, and this is how you know he's a public official. And they said, where are the men that came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. In the know. In the know. And, of course, what do they want to know? They want to know some sexual perversion. He said, oh, no, don't do that, boys. Don't do that. Don't do that. I got a couple daughters. How about them? They have not known man. What kind of a father does that? Whoa. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came into Sojin, and he must needs be a judge. See, that's how you know. They wanted to be in the know. And the idea of knowing someone in this context is referring to the sexual knowledge of an individual. Here we have it again. But all the women, children that have not known a man by lying with him, see, in the know. That's where these ideas, these common sayings come from. You'll see it, well, lo and behold, we'll find it in Deuteronomy 13:13. The first time the word sinners is found in the Bible was in Genesis 13:13. And here we have it again. Certain men, the children of Belial, are gone out from among you, and have withdrawn the inhabitants of their city, saying, let us go and serve other gods which ye have not known. These other gods are sexual predators or sexual perverts. And this is how the idea of known is used. In the know, it's dealing with the sexual relations between men, women, children, and animals. So here's with Mary and Joseph. Then Joseph, being raised from sleep, did as the angel of the Lord had bidden him, and took him unto his wife, and knew her not till she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus. So there we go. That's how the word is used. And that's where we get the idea of in the know. You get that in Genesis 19. You see, adultery is one part of a sexual definition of fornication. Okay, fornication is defined in its entirety in Leviticus 18. And adultery is just one aspect of it, or one form of it, I guess you could say. And the devil knows the way you blackmail people, is through this way. This is how you get them to vote as you wish. Sextortion. And that's the idea. This is why politics has scandals, and it's perverse. And when a person goes down this road of fornication, fornication is a sin that entangles a person almost to the impossibility of recovering or getting untangled. 2 Peter, this is going to be infested in culture during the tribulation, having eyes full of adultery, and that cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls, and heart that they have exercised with covetous practice. Cursed children. In Jude, verse 7, this is an example when Sodom, back in Genesis 19, so we're in the same idea, even as Sodom, Gomorrah, and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Strange flesh, that's fallen angels. So this fornication is a very unique sin. It's a sin against the body. Paul warned about this in 1 Corinthians 5 when this church were bragging about their grace. We have such grace that we have allowed a young man to marry his mama. And this takes you back to Leviticus 18, and this is called fornication. Oh, we have grace, and they glory in their grace, perverted grace. He said, I wrote unto you in an epistle not to keep company with fornicators. Yea, not altogether the fornicators of this world, or with the covetous, or extortioners. You see, all this is going hand in hand. Extortion, lust, covetous, fornicators, rich, all of it goes hand in hand. But now I have written unto you not to keep company with any man that is called a brother, be a fornicator. Whew, boy. If we go to chapter 6, he goes in a little more detail here, toward the end of chapter 6. He says, Know ye not that your bodies are the members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them the members of an harlot? God forbid. What? Know ye not that he which is joined to a harlot is one body? For two, saith he, shall be one flesh. Okay, now this is a quotation from Genesis probably 2, and then also Matthew 19. This is used for marriage. Two shall be one flesh. He slightly varies it over here. It's like a marriage. It may not be a true legitimate marriage, but it's like a marriage where they're joined in one body. But he that is joined in the Lord is one spirit. So this is why I'm thinking that this is a spiritual marriage. And this is why it says, flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. Why is this? It is a spiritual fornication of unclean spirits that continue to influence both parties. If one party has 7 devils in them, like Mary Magdalene before she got saved, and another party's got, 14 devils in him or her, well, you add them up and you get 21 that can go back and forth between both parties and enslave them. That's why fornication is a web of deception, and it is used by Satan to bind people and entangle them, and in the know works as political blackmail. And this is where extortion comes in play, because he's dealing with somebody lusting after possessions. Here we have the first occurrence of extortioner, Psalm 109. That's quite a prayer. But if you look at the context of this is dealing with the Antichrist. He's an extortioner. He's going to use sextortion. This one is clearly about the times during the Great Tribulation, and we'll show you this. The Lamb, send the Lamb there to the ruler of the land of Selah. This is Selah Petra. Who's in Petra? The daughter of Zion. What are they doing? Wandering bird, cast out of the nest, scattered abroad. Take counsel. Okay, they're outcasts. They're outcast of Israel. Let mine outcast dwell with thee in Moab. That's Petra. Be thou a covert to them from the face of the spoiler, for the extortioner is at an end. So this is a deceptive ploy of the Antichrist, and of course this is a political thing. Here you have it within the scribes and Pharisees. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Yeah, that's exactly right, what they're full of. In Luke 18, verse 11, the Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers. You see how they go together? And that's the political blackmail. You see, the Bible covers all these things. You see, what the idea is that people, especially with cell phones and sex texting and everything, and a person gets infatuated with another party, and they get infatuated, and they develop a fantasy, and then they think to themselves, if I can just have so-and-so. Yeah, that's what these two girls thought. These two women committed whoredoms in Egypt. Yeah, look at this. I mean, they love the young soldiers, the 18, 19, 20-year-old young men, Marines, all this stuff, the soldiers, Army, Navy, Air Force. Oh, they even put pictures on their wall with them riding on a horse with this soldier in his glorious uniform, and they infatuated with these things. And when she cast herself in a bed of love, probably lust, but bed of love, they defiled her with their whoredom, and she was polluted with them, and her mind was alienated from them. You see, that's the war in her mind, the war in her body. Her fantasy didn't act out the way she thought it was going to. So she discovered her whoredoms and discovered her nakedness. Then my mind was alienated from her. That's God was alienated from her, like as my mind was alienated from her sister. You see, that's how this thing works. And then he says, behold, I will raise up thy lovers against thee. So this extortion and fornication, they get fighting among themselves, from whom thy mind is alienated. You see, the fantasy is not playing out as they fantasized. And so what happens to them? I will deliver thee into the hand of them whom thou hatest, into the hand of them from whom thy mind is alienated. When a person gets infatuated with a certain person by their looking on their phone and all this stuff, and they fantasize. Like Potiphar's wife when she did with Joseph, where she's infatuated with this young man. Oh, he's such a confident young man, and if I can just catch him in a sexual way, then I can just continue to blackmail him. And she acted like she loved him. Oh, lie with me, Joseph, lie with me. And then he took off running. He got out of the way, and then she ratted on him. So much for love like this. We have another of this political entanglement, this blackmail within political situation, in the know. Oh, by chance it's in chapter 13. Amnon, son of David, had a friend. Oh, he's a political mate, Jonadab. He was a very subtle man. And Amnon loved Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. Same father, different mother. Oh, he was infatuated with her. He probably had her on his cell phone. Probably had pictures on her on his desk. Oh, he just loved her. He was infatuated, and he fantasized at nighttime, what it would be like. And so then Jonadab advised him, and he raped her. Yeah, he raped her. And so look here. the fantasy didn't act out the way he thought it was. Then Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred wherewith he hated her was greater than the love wherewith he had loved her. That's how that works out. Why? Because the expectation of the fantasy did not materialize as the person fantasized. Yeah, that's what James is warning about. And during the tribulation, it's going to be wholly given over to fornication. It's going to be used for political agenda. And then you get a strange, 2 verses to help overcome this idea, where he says, "Do you think that the Scripture saith in vain, the Spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy?" Now, this is a kind of a tough one to figure out how to pin this down right to it. But remember that when God states Scripture, he don't have to quote it verbatim. And he's given a thought here along with this lust, and he's taken the evil negative aspect of lust and he's turning it about to what the spirit within a person desires for the individual. The spirit, is this the spirit of the individual, or is this another way of writing the Spirit of God? You can go either way on that. The Spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy. Now, I run it like this, where the Spirit of God and the Spirit of the believer desire spirituality for the believer. And they are jealous of anyone or anything that comes between the believer and the Lord. Now, this is the fighting that's inside a person, where the spirit of an individual desires spiritual things, but the flesh desires fleshly things. And this is the guilt that people deal with when they violate their spirit. The Spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin but by the law, for I had not known lust, except the law had said, Thou shalt not covet. Okay, so this one defines lust not in the sexual sense. It's not limited to the sexual sense. It is also in a material sense, like the military-industrial complex. And if we take the word covet, here one is told to covet earnestly the best gift. So this is when covetousness is used in the right way, to covet, to desire, to lust after the best gifts, to yearn to possess the best gifts. And this would be the gifts up here, the gifts of the Spirit, the best gifts. And I would say one that you, my friend, this is what you really need to pray for. Covet earnestly this one for sure, the discerning of spirits. That one is of utmost priority in these days. In 1 Corinthians, now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. So you see, this is not dealing specifically with sex, even though this and this is, but it's also dealing with the covetousness of possessions and gaining wealth. And here we have the rich men. How did they get there? As adulterers and adulteresses. Now the solution for this is the war inside between the flesh and the spirit. And most likely, I'm taking you to Galatians chapter 5, and this will show us again the contrast within a person. Walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that you would. And I do believe that's what James is implying when he says that the Scripture says that the spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth of envy. So what's our solution here? The Lord gives us the solution. How does one overcome this? But he giveth more grace. He giveth more grace? Yeah, grace. Grace, what for? To overcome lust. Wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. Now when we're dealing with this, we need to run to Paul's writings because he talks about the grace that's given. And this is growth in grace. This is grace to overcome sins of commission. This is grace to fulfill things that are right to do. Therefore to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to even think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. So if we go back to chapter 5, he says here, Moreover the law entered, that the offense might abound. But where sin abounded, grace did much more abound. So in the tribulation time period, where sin is going to abound worldwide, the Lord is offering grace to overcome this. Grace did much more abound, that as sin hath reigned unto death, even so might grace reign through righteousness unto eternal life. And this is the great promise that he offered in Hebrews, that you come to the throne of grace boldly. Why? To obtain mercy and to find grace, to help in the time of need. This is how James is using it. Grace will help one overcome the lust that he's talking about. Paul said grace, look at here, having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us. Is given, that's present tense. He says that again in chapter 15, verse 5. I've written more boldly unto you in some sort, as putting you in mind, because of the grace that is given to me of God. So the Lord's encouraging us. We need to pray for this grace, according to the grace of God, which is given unto me as a wise master builder. I have laid the foundation, another buildeth thereon, but let every man take heed how he buildeth thereon. This grace will help build the right kind of life and practice and lifestyle that you're supposed to have. And what's going to help you is the spiritual gifts. And Ephesians 4:7, but unto every one of us is given grace according to the measure of the gift of Christ. Now here's just a little teaser here toward the end. This is given, my friend, is given grace. Does that mean is given present tense today, now? I'm sure you would say yes, it is given. And the gifts is given. And in 1 Corinthians 12 is given. I mean, it's all through there, isn't it? Is given. Present tense. So if it's present tense all these other times, guess where else it is present tense? All Scripture is given by inspiration of God. Present tense. Present tense. And so what do we need? We need the word of grace, where Acts 20, verse 30, and now, brethren, I commend you to God and the word of his grace, which is able to build you up and to give you an inheritance among all them which are sanctified. See, that's what grace is meant to do. Grace is meant for you and I. And this is a universal thing. Grace is meant, for the grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, just like what James says, we should Should. Did you get that? Should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. So back in James, these first 6 verses, dealing with the wars and fightings that will occur throughout the world, as Jesus prophesied, they are the result of the wars and fightings within a person. And the extortion or sextortion will blackmail anyone to become a friend of the world, but yet you're an enemy of God. The spirit inside us is lusting, coveting, desiring, yearning to possess the individual, and he in return will give grace to overcome these lusts. And this is given not to the proud, but to the humble. Okay, that's kind of a different approach there in James 1 through 6. And of course, I welcome your comments. And at the bottom, please, and we'll keep going down through this letter, Lord willing. May the Lord bless you, and I trust that you are seeking, praying to the Spirit of God who will guide you into all truth.